All right, I wanted to do a little tutorial on Notability since so many of us are using this today. So I'm going to go over just some toolbar and favorites, then move around to the organization, how you can set up your notebooks, talk about backing up your Notability. That's really useful, especially if you go back and forth between devices or just in case you lose anything, how to import something into Notability and how to export, and then maybe some extras along the way. So Notability is one of my favorite and many teachers' favorite apps for using or for note taking. So I'm just opening up my Notability here, and I'm going to, in the top right hand corner, create a new note. I see a little pencil and a square there. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the toolbar. So across the toolbar, you have this first button, which is to share something we'll talk about later. You can be typing a text box if you wanted to type. Otherwise, this is the feature I use the most, which is the pen tool. You can get different colors. You can make your own custom colors. Maybe you know the code that you want to have. And then you can also change the size. And remember, you could zoom in and then kind of write really small. So this one is very thin, but when you're zooming in on something, it might seem thicker. Okay, so don't be afraid to change the size here. And then here's the highlighter. I like to use the highlighter often when I maybe write something and then I want to just bring attention to it to the class. So I don't have to write in front of them. And I'll be like, okay, this section, or of course when you're doing text, highlighting text, has more colors as well. And then there's the classic eraser. You can erase the whole thing. Or you can do partial eraser, which is like maybe you want just parts of this. Okay, so that the whole thing would erase all that blob together, the line that you drew, and then the partial would erase parts of it. So this is just some text, make that thicker, text. And then here you have a select tool, so you could actually select parts of this and move it around. It does take the whole thing as a whole, or you can just choose everything at the same time. So you can move things around. And I also use this a lot for resizing. So maybe I made something and I kind of got out of space taking notes. I would just like, oh, I'm going to make that smaller. And then I want to continue. So sometimes that can happen. Let's say that, you know, I want to make this map and then I'm like, oh, no, I actually really wanted that to be a little bit smaller, you know, for one reason or another. And I could do that. This just helps me move around the page, but you can use your fingers. And then there's a laser pointer here that let's say that you're presenting, because you can, of course, screen mirror this, and many people use this to present. If you don't want to write on text, you can just use that little laser, and this just gives you a little laser tail. Like it waits a little bit, and then it fades out, which is kind of nice. This next thing up here that kind of looks like a microphone, this allows you to record a meeting, and then just know that when you send this file out, it's two files, a PDF and then an audio. But it's kind of nice, maybe you're conferring with a student and you want to remember kind of what you talked about, you could send them that as a review. Over here is where you'll add items such as photos that you possibly have that you want to include in your document. You just say add. And then you can, of course, resize them. You could also crop them when they're in here. So maybe you want to do that with some book pages. You can also add directly from the camera. So maybe I want to take a picture of this right now and then use it. I crop it as I bring it in because I just need this part. So I can bring that in as well. And then when you write on top of it, not that it's tricky, but just have to know that, you know, you could cover it up. There are, of course, document scan. So you could like scan a PDF. There are GIFs available that you could bring in that are kind of fun. Let's go back. And there's some web clips. So that's if you have a website that you want to embed into this. So maybe it is this website. You could embed that in. Let's see if I can copy that. Sorry guys. Okay, I won't do that because I can't make a copy. And then there's some stickies as well that have some different options. So not much there, but you could add some sticky notes around if you wanted to. On this right-hand side, there are 3 dots, and here's where you could change your paper. So it could be different colors, and it could also have some notebook paper lines, which people often like. They're pretty simplistic. Not much there. And then here is where you can toggle back and through your pages. Here on the 3 dots, you can clear a whole page. Let me change this paper because it's so hard for me to see. You can also duplicate a page. So I could copy it and then paste it again, or just like add a page in between. This kind of setup is like scrolling. So I'm gonna scroll down my different pages and write this way. What I really like to make sure that I don't forget is like I have space here to really zoom in and write smaller. And then when you zoom out, it's a little bit, like you're saving a little bit of space. So this is the toolbar. I also wanted to mention the favorites. So let's say you find a pen that you love, that you're always like, I'm always getting this size, but I have to do like 3 steps to get it. You can just add to favorite that. And then on the bottom, your favorites are all here on the left. So these are my favorites that I often like to use. All right, so that is the toolbar. That should get you started with all of that. Over here, on the left-hand side here is the organization. You can see I have subjects, which are this purple, like the colored, and then there are also dividers. So these are different dividers. I wanted to grab some of this. So I have a divider, and then I have subjects within that divider. One thing I like to do is I like to take all of Jenny's like Post-it note charts and bring them in case I ever need to see them. So I do that by asking her, can I take a photo? Or I can give this by just sending it out and airdropping this to somebody. So I could just find their iPad or their laptop and then share it out with them as well. So this is how I organize. I do some subjects and then I do some dividers. So if I know that I'm going to have a lot of different subjects within a divider, that's how I do that. If I want to create a new note in here, I just, within the subject, my extended essay, I just click in the top right-hand corner, new note. And then this note will actually be already organized for me. Otherwise, if you have all your notes, you can just drag and drop them that way. While I was in this extended essay, this will be the extras, one thing that maybe you saw that I like to do is I like to bring in a PDF and then I mark up on it. So I can take notes that way, highlight different things, make little notes to myself. I also do that for students' work and kind of like show what notes I want to make on their document that way. So that is the organization. To edit this area, you just click edit. You can drag things around here. Or if you want to start it, you add subject, which is just the 1 dot here, or divider, where you would have like this drop down and many dots, subjects within that. All right. The other thing is the backup. On the bottom left-hand corner is the settings gear. Auto backup, I like to turn it on to Google Drive so that my notes are sunk into my Google Drive. So I just want to make sure that everything backs up to Google Drive. So that's a good tip. And then a lot of people like to kind of use this as a means of showing a presentation. So I want to try to find a file where I brought in, for example, like a Google slide, which this is sideways. I don't want to bring it in sideways. But I'm going to show you how to be in your Drive and bring something in. Okay, so I'm going to go to my Drive first, and there's 2 ways to do this. I like to start in my Drive because it's easier for me to find documents. And then I'm going to send a copy, which actually turns it into a PDF. So I'm going to take this one. So let's say I've created a presentation in slides, and I want to give that to Notability, because that's why I want to go to present it, because I want to write on top of it. I'm going to click on the 3 buttons and say share and export, send a copy, automatically it'll be a PDF, which means whatever changes you make here do not get saved in the drive. It actually creates a new document, so then you can still have your original one. So this might take a while because it's a long one. So let me just find another one that's a little bit smaller. Let's see what presentation that's very small. I have one that I think is only 3 pages. That's this one. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots, share and export, send a copy. It'll be a PDF. And so now I'm just going to wait for that to be sent into Notability. So here I see Notability. I can just click it and it will create a new note, or you could add to an existing note. I like this because if I create a new note, it automatically tells me where do I want to put this. Well, I'm going to put this in my remote learning. What pages do I want? Oh, I don't need this page, so just these 3. And then up in the top right-hand corner, import. One file has been sent to Notability. I'm going to double click on the home circular button, and then I can see in Notability all my notes that has been added. So now when I present my device, I'll be able to kind of write on top of this presentation and say, oh, actually this is going to be ASB student. Okay, this isn't, you can make your notes and present to the class that way. That's importing. Let's say that I have some notes that I want to, so here I have, maybe I have the sketch that I want to export. So I'm going to share, which means in this right-hand corner there, that is the share out button. And I can then say other apps or put it right in my Google Drive. But I'm going to say other apps, share note. And now it's going to let me choose where do I want to share this. So of course I can email it. What I'm looking for is Google Classroom, because then I can bring this automatically into my Google Classroom and post it on an assignment. So perhaps you have a presentation that then you want to show the notes on top of what it was as you worked through something. Then you could automatically choose what classroom to share it to and then post it on materials or an assignment. I'm just going to stop that for now. You could also just email this directly, or I also airdrop a lot of things. So if somebody else is close by that has a device, you could just click and send it away to them that way. So that is your beginner thing on Notability. You can stop this. Otherwise, I'm going to show a little bit, some tips for when you are note-taking on here. So I like to set up my notes this way, and I don't usually have background paper, but doesn't matter. So I'm going to have a title here, and I like to choose like a darker color. And then I like to do that TC kind of thing where you're kind of like always blocking it off. Title, and then maybe I have another one for a subtitle. And what I like to always remember is that don't be afraid to get a thinner marker and then zoom in, because then you'll save a lot more space. So maybe here are my like dots. And then I also like to get a lot of highlighting. So if I write the notes, I go back and read them and I highlight again afterwards. So of course, you know good note-taking strategies already, but these are just some of the things kind of that when I take notes, I like to do. So we can browse through a few and see if there's anything good. Not normally. I really like to bring these things in. And I also like to bring in, well, here's for your revision, a PDF. And then right on top of it. So you can think about anecdotal notes or things like that. And then you're able to kind of like write on top of things in a format or a note-taking style that's already set up for you. All right. If you're still watching, like we have the learning behaviors. And so imagine that you could make a copy of one of these. So you can always select this and duplicate. And then you have a couple. You could drag into the same area. I'm sure this one is up there. And so you could even duplicate all these pages. So copy, paste, and I could have a lot of these copies, and maybe I would have one for every kid. So maybe it's quarter 1, and this is for Andy. Okay, and this is for Matt. And then I kind of keep track as the time goes on with their responsibility and work habits, maybe how they're doing. A little bit more like anecdotal notes. So, however you want to do that, there's a lot of great ideas, and I think it always helps to look at somebody else's notes and how they do their note taking to get ideas. I know I'm always looking at Jenny, and Lauren Gould has a lot of ways that she's taking notes. So, I hope this is helpful, and it's a little long, and I'm sorry, but enjoy.